All right, good afternoon. Welcome, one and all. Hurry, take your seats. Doors are going to close. Fasten your seatbelts. We're going to start with our guest today. If we could put Mr. Fletcher on the screen, Tom, please. Great. We are delighted to be joined by Tom Fletcher, who, as you know, is the Emergency Relief Coordinator and head of the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. He's briefing us from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and we thought it would be good for you to hear from him today after the SG spoke to you about Gaza. So, Tom, please go ahead, and you have the floor. And welcome.
Many thanks indeed, Steph, and thank you, colleagues. It's nice to be joining you on a day with some good news and a moment of hope and opportunity, as the Secretary-General has set out earlier. I'm conscious today that that George Mitchell line about 799 days of failure and 1 day of success is the nature of diplomacy and of peacemaking, and we've had to wait almost 799 days, and let's make this day of success count now. President Trump's peace plan must be the basis for life-saving work throughout the region and for saving tens of thousands of lives. So we must seize this moment with collective will, with determination, and with generosity. There must be no backsliding on the agreements that have been made. There will be some who will seek to prevent President Trump's plan from being implemented, and that must not be allowed to happen. This cannot be a false dawn for civilians in Gaza and Israel who are so desperate for peace, to see again their loved ones and their families after so long waiting, and to live lives free from fear. So our plan, detailed and tested, is in place. Our supplies, 170,000 metric tons, food, medicine, and other supplies, are in place. And our team, courageous and expert and determined, are in place. So here is what we plan to deliver in the first 60 days of the ceasefire. We will aim to increase the pipeline of supplies to hundreds of trucks every day. Food, we will scale up the provision of food across Gaza to reach 2.1 million people who need food aid and around 500,000 people who need nutrition. Famine must be reverted in areas where it has taken hold and prevented in others. So we will be distributing in-kind rations, we'll be supporting bakeries, community kitchens, we'll be supporting herders and fishers in restoring their livelihoods, and it will be providing cash for 200,000 families to cover basic food needs and bolster their ability to cope, and also to give them their sense of, and this is so important, dignity and agency by choosing their own food from the markets. Nutrition, will increase nutrition screening and will provide nutrition supplies, including high energy, nutrient-dense food items for the most vulnerable groups, including pregnant and breastfeeding women and children and adolescents. On health, we'll restore the decimated health system. We'll aim to deliver more essential medical commodities and medical supplies. We'll aim to re-establish community-level disease surveillance, to support emergency referrals and more medical evacuations, to supplement the workforce by deploying more emergency teams, and will help scale up emergency care, primary health, child health, sexual, reproductive, maternal and neonatal health, non-communicable diseases, mental health, and rehabilitation. And will enhance outbreak preparedness, surveillance, logistics, and referral systems to meet the health needs of the people. On water and sanitation, we're targeting 1.4 million people with water and sanitation services. We'll help to restore the water grid, so to build up people's reliance on water tracking, including by providing fuel, generators, chemicals, materials, and supplies. We will install latrines at the household level. We will repair sewage leaks and pumping stations. We will move solid waste away from residential spaces. And we'll provide hygiene supplies, soap, shampoo, laundry, detergent, sanitary pads. Shelter, we will now carry out a massive scale-up in shelter provision, including to help families to prepare for winter. We'll bring in and distribute thousands of tents every week, in addition to tarps and other items. We'll focus on bigger and more vulnerable families and those in particularly dire conditions in underserved and overcrowded sites. And we'll prioritize people who've been newly displaced and the returnees who've lost their homes. Through all of this, that we hope to prepare families for the rainy season, the winter season ahead. Education, we will reopen temporary learning spaces to provide activities for 700,000 school-aged children, and we'll provide them with learning materials and school supplies. This is the plan. We can deliver it. We've done it before, and we will do it again. To deliver it, we need to ensure protection for civilians, particularly women and girls. We need to identify where the unexploded ordnance is to reduce that risk to civilians, particularly as they return to their home areas. We'll have to boost support for child protection and to support those who've been the victims of sexual violence. And we'll have to constantly prioritize. Our teams are ready to make the tough decisions ahead about where to focus support and to ensure that it reaches, and this is very, very important, that it reaches civilians and civilians only. For all of this to happen, we need 10 things. One, sustained entry of at least 1.9 million litres of fuel every week. 2, the resumption of cooking gas. 3, relief supplies to come in through multiple corridors. And we've had useful clarifications today on more crossings becoming open in the hours and days ahead. We then need more functional crossings. And that means also making sure that we've got the additional scanners in place so that our convoys and our trucks can move more swiftly to where they are needed. We need those security guarantees for those crossings. It is notable that looting has fallen in recent days, and as we get more supplies in at the scale needed, we expect that looting to fall further and faster. We need the basic infrastructure to be restored. We need the protection of humanitarian workers. We need the facilitation of NGO access, including through ensuring that NGOs are not deregistered. The UN can deliver at scale, but we cannot deliver without our partners in the humanitarian movement. 9, we need that rapid and unimpeded facilitation, the passage of our humanitarian relief for civilians in need wherever they are in the Gaza Strip. And finally, we need to ensure that our operations are adequately funded. This is critical to our ability to meet these overwhelming needs. At the moment, only 28% of the $4 billion needed for the 2025 flash appeal for these areas, for the OPT, has been funded. Only 28%. So every government, every state, every individual that has been watching this crisis unfold and wondering, what can we do? If only there is something we can do. Now is the time to make that generosity count, to help us to deliver, to help us to save so many lives in the Gaza Strip, to respond to this plan at the scale required and with the level of kindness and generosity that frankly the world owes right now. We need those quick injections of aid to get the pipeline open and the aid flowing. For those tens of thousands of Palestinians and Israelis who have lost their lives in the last 2 years, on October 7th and since, including the hundreds of our humanitarian colleagues who have died trying to save lives. For those who have hoped against all hope for reason to prevail, and this day to come, for those who yearn for food, medicine, shelter, security, to be reunited with their families and loved ones, and for those whose future can still be one of peace. We must act, and we will act. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you very much, Tom. I know you have a short amount of time, but we'll start with Edie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fletcher. On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this important briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. A couple of quick follow-ups. First, have the Israelis signed and Hamas signed on to the UN leading this major humanitarian effort, especially in Gaza for the 2 million Palestinians still there? Secondly, will UNRWA be playing a role? And thirdly, you said that some people were going to try to prevent this agreement from taking hold. Could you elaborate on who you're worried about that might impede the implementation of this agreement? Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, thank you, Edie. Thank you, Steph. So the 20-point plan that was outlined by the mediators, by the negotiators, has excellent language in it on the importance of the UN role at the heart of the humanitarian response. And so we're being guided by that. That's the scaffolding within which we'll be working, and we're determined to do everything we can to play our part in delivering this important agreement. And that means that the entire UN family is mobilized to deliver. We've often said, I've often spoken about the indispensable role of UNRWA in delivering in our operations across our work to support Palestinian civilians. I've also spoken again today about the importance of our NGO colleagues and partners being mobilized to back this effort. We also, of course, need the private sector to be involved as well. We need the commercial routes to be running. Saving lives at this scale, given the level of needs, the level of starvation, the level of misery and despair, will require a massive collective effort, and that's what we're mobilized for. On the point about those who might seek to derail this process, I think it's no secret. I think there are hardliners on both sides of the argument who have sought in the past to delay or impede efforts to get the hostages out, to get the aid in. They've been explicit in their rejection of what we all recognize as a path towards peace. And I hope that the way in which the world has come out so clearly backing President Trump's initiative and the work that's been done by the regional foreign ministers, many of whom I've been in touch with today, that very, very strong welcome from the international community for this plan will serve to marginalize those voices who would seek to prevent its success.
And UNRWA's participation.
As I say, the whole UN humanitarian family is mobilized to do everything we can to get aid through. We will take a judgment day to day on what is needed on the convoys, where we can best save lives, but we'll be doing that as one UN family.
Thank you very much. Bisanab Quick with Al Jazeera Arabic. So you laid out this plan. You're ready it seems to be on the go immediately. So just a couple of questions. Do you feel that you have enough people on the ground to actually deliver what the plan promises? And from conversations that you have been having with donors or relevant parties since, this agreement has come to light, Do you think that have you sensed a desire for more people coming forward to raise more money in terms of funding all of these operations, since you actually mentioned the percentage of money that's still available now? And one last and a third follow-up, a lot of the people who have been displaced, they're going to go back to areas where there are no homes. Homes have been destroyed. Do you have enough supplies in terms of tents, caravans, all of that, for people who are displaced to actually find a place to stay when they go back to their areas?
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So we are, in the words of my extraordinary colleague, Cindy McCain, who runs the World Food Programme, we are ready to roll. It's something she regularly says in meetings, and we are, in this case, absolutely ready to roll and deliver at scale. And I pay tribute to the work of our WFP colleagues and colleagues from across the UN and the wider humanitarian family for the preparations that they've been doing. They wanted to get in at this scale for months. Let's be clear, we've been asking, demanding, imploring for the access which we hope that in the coming days we will now have. And so we are absolutely ready to go. As part of that, if you look at my phone now, you will see countless messages from colleagues from across the UN humanitarian family, people putting their hands up to get out there and help deliver this. This, for all of us, I think we feel the sense of purpose and the sense of mission about the importance of the work we have in the days ahead. So we have no shortage of volunteers, and we'll be taking those judgments about what expertise we need in country and in the region in the days ahead to make sure that we're not going to miss this opportunity. We must seize this opportunity of delivering at much, much greater scale than we've been able to do really since the last ceasefire when I was there back in January. On whether the donors will come forward, of course, let's wait and see. This is the moment when we test that commitment. We test whether the world will react with the generosity which I certainly feel is demanded in this situation. And, you know, I'm an idealist here, and I refuse to believe, I cannot believe that the world will not come forward at this stage and make sure that these operations are fully funded. Anyone who has watched any of the news over the last 2 years, whose heart has been repeatedly broken by what they've seen, anyone who cares about getting the hostages home and the food in, as we all do, will surely come forward and get wholeheartedly behind this response. We do have significant supplies of tents. I can get you, the team can get you the figures of what we have on the borders ready to go in, but also what we're asking for in the days ahead. Many Palestinian civilians, as they told me they would do, will now be heading back to destroyed homes to try to restart their lives and start that long and painful process of rebuilding. You know, this morning, when the news broke, there was huge celebration in Gaza that there was hope that this conflict was over. But then for many people, they returned to the desperation of just surviving. And a large part of that will be thinking about how they survive the winter. And so we have to get that shelter in for them, and I'm determined that we will do that.
Thank you. Ibtisam Azam, and then we'll go to Deji.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azam, Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. I want to follow up on, you talked about sustained entry, but as a matter of fact, there is the issue of the blockade, and it is something that was before the beginning of this war also hindering access to Gaza. So are you calling for the lift of the blockade? And what do you think should be done about it? And then you talked about the need for bringing in hundreds of trucks, but there is also the issue of the quality of the aid that should enter, which includes probably machines and others to help you with your work, the other issues that you want to do. So how fast do you want to see all of this happening? And what about the Rafah crossing border? Are you working on having aid delivered through Rafah? Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. So my assumption is we are going to have, and we must have, unimpeded access, unimpeded humanitarian access. And so the blockade must be lifted. We have been demanding that for months, and will continue to demand that. And my reading of the agreement is that we will have that unhindered access that is so important for our life-saving work. As you say, there will be a phase beyond the immediate humanitarian response when we can turn our minds to rebuilding and that long-term resilience of Gaza. We're not there yet. We will do the planning with our colleagues, with the parties on the ground, with the region to prepare a plan for that phase. But for now, our focus is on the ceasefire and on delivering this life-saving work and saving as many lives as we can in the conditions that we find ourselves in. To do that, to your final question, yes, we need all crossings open. When we talk about unimpeded access, that means opening all of those crossings, opening up those secure routes. And so that is a key part of our dialogue, and we're obviously in very close dialogue, our team on the ground with the Israeli authorities, with the Palestinian authorities, with the region as well, including the neighbors, to ensure that we can get those crossings open.
Thank you. Deji, then Chris.
Hi, Mr. Fletcher. This is Xu Deji with China Central Television. 2 questions. Well, first, do you have a plan to visit Gaza in person if this ceasefire deal holds? And secondly, you just mentioned that your assumption is that you're going to have and you must have unimpeded access, humanitarian access into Gaza. What about your coordination with Israeli authority on this so far? Do they have a concrete agreement on this, or you're going to have a dialogue with them day by day to see whether you have how many trucks get into Gaza? Thank you.
Many thanks, Deji. This is the Gaza crisis is, as you can imagine, very much at the top of my in tray, and I would very much anticipate visiting to meet the team, to check on the progress of our aid delivery, and to ensure that we're doing everything we can to remove any obstacles and to work with everyone to get life-saving aid through. So I very much hope to visit, and I hope the conditions will be in place for that. In terms of the coordination, absolutely, we have a close dialogue with the Israeli authorities, with COGAT, who oversee much of this work. And that dialogue has been ongoing, even when we've gone through these very difficult months and when we've disagreed on many things. And so the team are, of course, engaged with them and engaged in a spirit of wanting to solve problems. And my hope is that that is the mindset of all of us in this next phase, that we want to work together to save as many lives as possible and make sure that President Trump's deal sticks in all its aspects.
Thank you. Chris, then Emily.
Mr. Fletcher, thank you so much for holding this briefing. Chris Reyes with Canadian Broadcasting. This is just picking up on Deji's question. Given that Israel has had such a combative relationship with the United Nations throughout this war, how much of a green light do you need from Israel to carry out this ambitious plan? And perhaps you can give us some insight into the dialogue that you say that you're holding right now with Israeli forces.
I'll leave you to choose the adjective for some of the back and forth that we've clearly had over a long period now, as we've sought to secure maximum humanitarian access and save as many lives as we can, but also sought to bear witness to what we've seen in Gaza these last 2 years. We have got that dialogue. And that dialogue continued all the way through this time, with our team on the ground able to talk to their counterparts in COGAT and the Israeli authorities about what we need and the restraints that we face. I don't think that any of this is rocket science. We've worked with the Israeli authorities in the past, as we did during the 42-day ceasefire back at the beginning of the year, to deliver aid at massive scale, 500, 600 trucks going in every day. So we have the muscle memory between us all, and if we have the right spirit of dialogue, cooperation, and we can work to rebuild trust, then I'm confident that we can save lives at scale. That life-saving work, getting the hostages home, the aid in, is something that surely we can all agree on. And that's the spirit in which I'm ready to work, and we're ready to work.
Great. Chris, then Islam. Oh, sorry, Amélie. I'm sorry, Amélie. Sorry.
Thanks. Amélie Bottelier from AFP News Agency. I have a question about the volume and the time frame. You said that there are 170,000 tons of aid around the outside of Gaza, and the plan is over 2 months, 60 days. Does this volume of aid already propositioned around Gaza enough for covering the plan for the 2 first months, or do you need extra aid to come in to be able to feed the 2 million people of Gaza for these 2 first months? Thank you.
Thank you. So that number refers to the aid which is ready to go. We will need then to position more aid. We pre-positioned a lot of it, but we will need to bring more aid over the coming 2 months. And let's be clear, this problem won't go away in 2 months. There will still be an enormous amount of effort that is needed beyond that. And that's why we'll be seeking to get those pipelines moving and seeking the generosity of our donors.
Thank you. Islam, and that'll have to be the last question.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. On humanitarian aid to Gaza, what percentage would you say you are using your capacity at the moment, recently? And after the ceasefire tonight, in coming 60 days, what percentage capacity you are aiming to increase? What's your projection on that?
Just to be clear, Islam, I think you're asking me about specifically on Gaza, the percentage that we've been getting in compared to what we need to get in. Is that right? Or do you mean compared to our wider...
I would like to sort of make a comparison, like what percentage, what capacity you are using at the moment recently, and after ceasefire, how much you are expecting to increase your capacity in coming 60 days?
So I'd say we've been delivering probably less than 20% a day of what we should be getting in. We should be getting hundreds of trucks in. Today was a better day. We're still counting the trucks that we got in and were able to distribute. I hope tomorrow will be an even better day, and I hope in the days to come we'll be able to carry on giving you a positive trajectory. And we will certainly share the data that we have day by day. Steph, I know that will be grilling us for those facts and figures to share with you, to indicate what we're able to do and of course what we're not able to do if we do encounter blockages. But the scale that we need is much, much more, as we've been saying consistently, than what we've been allowed to get in recent months. And so we need to see that visible surge, that real sea change in what we can get in. And that's what we're working for flat out right now.
Great, Tom. Thank you very much. I know we'd have more questions here, but I know you've got another meeting in 2 minutes ago because your colleagues are telling me to shut this down. We hope to have you back in person very soon, or for an update early next week or whenever you're back. But thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Many thanks.
All right, thank you. Just to know, programming note, tomorrow at 1:15, there'll be an in-person briefing by Rima Al-Salam, the Special Rapporteur of Violence Against Women and Girls, its causes and consequences, following her presentation to the Third Committee. As you heard earlier today, the Secretary-General welcomed the announcement last night of an agreement to secure a ceasefire and a hostage deal in Gaza based on the plan presented by President Donald Trump. Speaking to you, he urged all parties to fully abide by the terms of the agreement and fully embrace the opportunities it presents. He said the UN will provide its full support. We and our partners are prepared to move on now. Supplies are in place. Our teams are in standby, as you heard from Mr. Fletcher. But the Secretary-General added that we need a full, safe, and sustained access for humanitarian workers, the removal of red tape and impediments, and the rebuilding of shattered infrastructure. The Secretary-General urged all to seize this momentous opportunity to establish a credible political path forward. And just to stay on Gaza, just a bit more numbers from our humanitarian colleagues who are finalizing the preparations as soon as conditions allow. The UN's 2720 mechanism secured clearance from Israeli authorities for about 170,000 metric tons of food, health, and nutrition supplies, as well as shelter items and other critical aid. That's all in our pipeline. These supplies are currently in the region, mainly in Israel, also in the West Bank, in Jordan, Egypt, and Cyprus, and they're all ready to be shipped to Gaza as soon as partners submit more supplies for approvals. OCHA tells us that the humanitarian community's initial response plan for the first 60 days of the ceasefire prioritizes the restoration of community-based and household-level distributions and services, which is a proven way to reach the most vulnerable. Partners are set to increase support for local food production, malnutrition, screening and treatment, the restoration of essential health services, repair for the decimated water grid, and a massive surge in emergency shelter provision, among other things. Just to note that our Deputy Secretary-General, as you know, is in Belgium, where she's attending the second edition of the Global Gateway Forum in Brussels. She's doing that on behalf of the Secretary-General. In her remarks to the meeting, she highlighted the strong partnership between the UN and the European Union, delivering on humanitarian response, climate action, and the protection of human rights. With only 5 years remaining on the 2030 SDG clock, she underscored the potential of the Global Gateway to accelerate SDG implementation on the ground. To keep delivering at scale, Ms. Mohammed emphasized the urgency of closing the $4.2 trillion annual SDG funding gap, scaling up climate action to limit strong warnings to below 1.5 degrees Celsius, and upholding the rule of law and territorial integrity in Europe and everywhere. On the margins of the forum, she met with senior EU officials to discuss strengthening UN-EU collaboration to drive progress on the SDGs and the Pact for the Future. This evening, the Deputy Secretary-General will head to South Africa to participate in the Kgalema Motlanthe Foundation Drakensberg Inclusive Growth Forum taking place in KwaZulu-Natal. Is that okay, Sherwin? Okay, thank you. This morning, our Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, and the Assistant Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, Joyce Masuya, briefed the Security Council in close consultations on the situation in Yemen. Later in the afternoon, Khaled Kyari, our Assistant Secretary-General for the Middle East, Asia, and the Pacific, will also brief the Council on close consultations on UNDOF, which is our peacekeeping mission that is tasked to maintain the ceasefire between Israel and Syria. And meanwhile, as global attention is drawn to many pressing events, I don't want us to overlook the tragic situation in Sudan, most horrifically in El Fasher, which is, you know, the besieged capital of North Darfur. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that since the start of October alone, more than 50 people have reportedly been killed. That's what medical association and local sources are telling us. We, of course, condemn this escalation of violence and the killing of innocent civilians. The Sudan Doctors Network said that yesterday at least a dozen civilians were killed, including women and children, with 17 others injured in an attack on a hospital in El Fasher, allegedly carried out by the Rapid Support Forces. This follows reports of a deadly attack on the hospital's maternity ward on the previous day. The people of El Fasher are trapped, terrified, and cut off from aid, and their last lifeline for medical care is under threat. It goes without saying that the targeting of hospitals is to be condemned and never acceptable. We're also alarmed by reports of a deadly attack that happened yesterday on a mosque where families in El Fasher had sought shelter. More than a dozen people were reportedly killed, and if you'll recall last month, the mosque came under attack in which 70 people were killed. Humanitarian law is clear. It demands the protections of religious sites and those who worship in those sites. Meanwhile, we and our partners remain committed to supporting the people of El Fasher and all those impacted by the conflict across Sudan. However, humanitarians need rapid, safe, sustained, and unimpeded access, and civilians, including frontline responders, must be protected. An immediate humanitarian pause in and around El Fasher is urgently needed. Turning to Ukraine, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that over the past 3 days, several civilians were killed and injured across Ukraine. Most civilian casualties were recorded in Kherson, Sumy, Donetsk, and Kharkiv. That's what local authorities are telling us. Our humanitarian colleagues also note that Ukraine's energy system remains under sustained pressure. Substations, power plants, and oil depots were all damaged in the regions of Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, and Donetsk. Those attacks temporarily cut off electricity to hundreds of thousands of households and businesses. As colder weather sets in, strikes on critical infrastructure are deepening humanitarian needs. Despite growing challenges, we, along with our humanitarian partners, are continuing to support the response. The first half of this year, our health partners provided essential care to nearly 1 million people, while food and livelihood programs supported over 1.1 million displaced and vulnerable families across Ukraine. And turning to Haiti, our friends at the UN Children's Fund tell us that the number of children displaced by violence in Haiti has almost doubled in the past year. There are now 680,000 boys and girls who've been uprooted from their homes in Haiti. Overall, as we mentioned here before, more than 1.3 million people are currently displaced in the country. UNICEF's Child Alert adds that about a third of the 246 displacement sites nationwide lack basic protection infrastructure, leaving children, women at heightened risks of violence, exploitation, and abuse. Schools often double as shelter, furthering disrupting education for nearly 500,000 students. UNICEF is calling for urgent international support to scale up assistance protection for displaced children. The agency's appeal for Haiti remains severely underfunded, as we've been telling you. And today, the LC Initiative Fund for Uniformed Women in Peace Operations launched its 4th programming round with a new call for proposals to advance inclusive peacekeeping. The LC Initiative was set up in 2019 to promote women's meaningful participation and to implement gender-responsive approaches to peacekeeping. Hosted by UN Women, today's event brought together senior UN colleagues, member states, partners, donors, and highlighted the results from projects supported by the fund in Senegal, Uruguay, and other places. Applicants to this new round of proposals include troop and police contributing countries, UN entities that wish to apply for funding to implement or plan barrier assessments, institutional reform, or the deployment of gender-strong units. And today is, besides Thursday, it is World Post Day. Grab a postcard and send it to a loved one. In his message, the Secretary-General said that today and every day we thank the 4.6 million postal workers around the world, and we recommit to supporting a strong, sustainable postal service for communities around the world. Ms. Fasulo.
Thank you, Steph. Apropos of the UN's role in the new Gaza deal, do you anticipate that the SG will be traveling to the region or perhaps even meeting with President Trump?
I don't have any travel to share with you at this point.
And one other thing I realized, the SG noted in his statement that all hostages must be released in a dignified manner. And I know he's mentioned this before. Is there any role that the UN may be playing in facilitating that?
I mean, right now, our understanding is that the details of how the hostages will be released is being worked out. We're, of course, ready to assist in any way that we may be asked by the parties. Sherwin.
Steph, thanks. There are some reports out today that Iran, quoting Iran's first Vice President Mohammad Reza Aref, as saying that the Secretary-General told him during a meeting in Turkmenistan in August that the SG believed the 12-day conflict in June had closed the file on attempts to topple the Iranian government. Can you confirm those remarks? And if the SG expressed a view that the war in June was in fact an effort to topple the regime in
No,
the government in Iran?
I cannot confirm. I'm not able to confirm that the Secretary-General would ever have said that. I would refer you to the readout that we issued on August 5th, which I think is an accurate description of what was said in the meeting from our side.
And you just announced that it was World Post Day. I wonder what World Post Day means in the 21st century.
Well, I, for one, still love getting a letter in the mail, a postcard. That is not a bill. Farnoosh.
Thanks, Steph. Wondering if, the Mr. Fletcher didn't have time, but wondering if you guys have been told if GHF will have any role in this upcoming, and will they work alongside the UN?
Look, I'm not aware of them having any role. Our standards for working with partners are unchanged, right? Independence, humanitarian, the fact that getting aid shouldn't increase your risk of getting killed, all those things as stand today as they did before. Yes, sir. And then Gabriel.
Thank you, Steph. I didn't have a chance to ask Mr. Fletcher a question about, as now we are talking about the food supplies and the emergency relief and everything and essential health supplies. Is there any provision to allow for mental health experts and specialists to get into Gaza after 2 years of brutal war?
Of course, I mean, the issue of mental health is at the forefront of our efforts. Even during the fighting in the last 2 years, outside of the ceasefire periods, our colleagues were offering psychosocial support in the best way they can, and it is part and parcel of humanitarian assistance. Gabriel.
Thank you, Steph. I know you don't have any travel to announce, but does the Secretary-General want to visit Gaza?
Yes, I mean, the Secretary-General has wanted to visit Gaza and would be keen to visit Gaza.
And and it's still your understanding that Israel still reserves the right to clear the cargo coming into Gaza. Is that correct?
I mean, all these details are going to be worked out, but I think based on past experience, that would be our expectation. But again, we are having a lot of discussions with Israelis and others on how to be able to bring in the most amount of humanitarian aid as quickly as possible. Jordan.
I did not attend this morning briefing by the SG, unfortunately, but I read his statement twice last night. Something missing from the statement. It was very comprehensive, very nice, but he forgot the Palestinian prisoners. Yet, if you look at the 20 points plans by Mr. Trump, it's clear. It's one point that the Palestinian prisoner will be released. Why the statement is not mentioned?
Look, I think this is an issue that we have talked about, that we have called for the release of the Palestinian detainees, and we welcome it as part of the deal. Pam.
Thanks, Steph. There have been several reports about, and as part of the ceasefire, an international force is being developed. Have you heard anything about it? How will it interact with aid deliveries? What are you hearing, especially?
I mean, we're obviously seeing we're seeing the same reports that you are. I think that's still a little bit away. We hope that whatever is developed will allow and create space for humanitarian delivery to be done along the basis that we've always done them, which is not in a militarized setting.
And just to be clear, the international force for the recovery of deceased hostages.
Oh, the issue, that we've seen our reports. I don't see how that would interfere with humanitarian aid.
Thank you.
Lenka.
Thank you, Steph. So President Trump has said that the UN Secretary-General has never called him to congratulate him on deals. Is the Secretary-General going to call him, or has he already called him?
I will share with you any connection on that end as soon as I can.
And follow up, because they might ask as well. Any update on the escalator investigation, please?
No, ma'am. Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Steph. So the Secretary-General called on all parties to abide by the President Trump's plan. Can we assume that he finds the deal to be fair? That's why he calls on everyone to abide by it.
I mean, the deal was agreed to by the warring parties. This is what counts, right? And that's why he's welcomed it.
Does he have any issues with the content of the plan at all?
The Secretary-General is not a party to this, right? To this conflict. Through the efforts of President Trump, through the efforts of Qatar, of Egypt, and Turkey, we've gotten a deal. The important thing now is that all the parties abide by it. For our part, and our responsibility with this deal is the delivery of humanitarian aid, and I think you heard from a very passionate Mr. Fletcher to explain what we're ready to do and what we will do as soon as possible. Abdelhamid, and I'll come back to the room.
Thank you, Steph. Yesterday, the settlers attacked the village of Deir Jrir, north of Ramallah, killed a young man, Jihad Muhammad Ajaj, he's 26, and wounded the 3 Palestinians. Why there is no separate statement to condemn such a heinous crime by the settlers?
I have not seen a report on this particular case, but I can tell you we have repeatedly, will continue to condemn settler violence against Palestinian civilians and against their agricultural lands. I think we talked about that yesterday pretty much in detail, about the attacks against the trees and the saplings as well as civilians. Chris, and then Edie, and then, yep, go ahead.
Hey,
Chris.
Steph, has the Secretary General had any communication with President Trump, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, or President Abbas
not in the last 12 hours, but things have been moving fast.
And then in light of National Post Day, has the Secretary General sent any postcards today?
I do not know. All right, Edie.
Thank you, Steph. A follow-up on the timing of an upsurge in the delivery of aid. From what Mr. Fletcher said, these talks with the Israelis, and it'd be nice to know who in the UN is actually doing that, is going on, and this great upsurge that he's announced is really dependent on the results of those talks.
Of course. I mean, the point person on the ground is Ramiz Al-Abkarov, our humanitarian chief for the OPT and the acting head of UNSCO. He is in more than daily contact with COGAT and other parties. We will have to continue to work through the system that's in place. Our hopes is that the amount of space that we're given will grow exponentially in the next few days.
Is the United Nations expecting the United States, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey to actually pressure for this surge in aid?
That would be very nice indeed. Dennis, and then Deji.
Hello, Steph. I have a question about Ukraine. I want to raise a Bucha topic. So what's the position?
What topic?
Bucha.
Okay.
What's the position of Secretary General about provocation in Bucha, and how could you comment on the Russian side regular requests for needed data necessary for the investigation?
On Bucha, I can tell you this is a topic that is often raised in the discussions between the Russian Federation and the Secretary General. It was raised by Foreign Minister Lavrov just a few weeks ago. There is information that we have, and there's information that we do not have, and that we cannot. There's information that we do not. Excuse me. There's information that we do not have, and this we clearly cannot provide. There is information that the UN has, which is information that the Office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights have, and they have certain ways to proceed with that kind of information, and the way they are guided is by a set of important principles, which includes ensuring informed consent and respecting confidentiality. They only publish or share information with explicit consent of victims and witnesses. And I can give you a bit more detail, but all of these constraints that are faced by our human rights colleagues have been it's been a long day, have been communicated to the Russian authorities, both by OHCHR and by the Office of the Legal Counsel. Alex, and then Deji. Sorry, we'll get to you, Deji.
Thanks, Steph. Quick follow-up. You just mentioned that the Secretary-General had no contact with President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu for the last 12 hours. What about 24 hours?
I can tell you that in the last 36 hours or so, or maybe 40 hours, the Secretary-General, and to honor the day that we're honoring today, has sent a letter to President Trump, talking about the express intent of the United Nations of him to work with the U.S. on a number of peace initiatives. Yeah, it was sent. It was a letter that was sent. Now, I don't think the letters that are sent are usually sent via the permanent mission, so I'm not sure they qualify for International Post Day. No, ma'am. Deji, very patient.
Yeah, on the letter, it's 40 hours, which means the talk is still going on. So the
it was prior to the. It was not pegged to the announcement, which only came late yesterday evening.
Okay. My question actually is also on the peace deal. Maybe it's not a good time, but we know that hundreds of humanitarian workers, journalists passed away, and we have tens of thousands of people died during the 2 years conflict. Will there still be accountabilities?
There needs to be accountability, but I think the reality, let's be honest, is that accountability in international conflicts takes a long time. But it doesn't mean that we are allowed to give up or allowed to stop pushing for accountability. On that note, Islam, I'm sorry. On that note, I will take Islam's question.
Thank you, Stefan. I have two questions. One is about the financial aspect of the humanitarian aid. Mr. Fletcher called for the financial support from the member states. Mm-hmm. So far, since ceasefire was on the air, has UN made any contact with the donors, any commitments so far?
I don't have any commitments to report, but again, this is, all of this happened in the last 12 hours. But as you know, the UN can't print money, the UN can't borrow money. So when we have an operation, we need to ask for money. So again, we have humanitarian appeals for the OPT. We will no doubt be in touch with major donors. And also there's various ways for the public to support UN's humanitarian agencies.
And if I may ask a second question, I know the ceasefire details are not really, we don't know, at least I don't know, but when the Israeli forces withdraw from the certain areas, the Palestinians, Gazans can go back where they were forcibly removed from? Because there was a video, some Palestinians, they were trying to go to north and the Israeli tank fired them. What is
what we hope is that the Palestinians in Gaza will be able to return to their homes and be safe in their homes or what remains of their homes. On that note, Fethi, quick one because I'm really hungry.
Quick. UN cannot print money, but can the UN issue its own crypto coin?
No. On that note.